God, let us soak in your Spirit, poured afresh upon us this new day, this Sabbath day. Let our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our whole selves rest in you. And I offer my words, O God. May they be faithful. In your name we pray. Amen. They call it quiet quitting. What started with anonymous message boards posted on employee websites and then became a trend on TikTok online has now made it into conversations in boardrooms and the business pages of major newspapers. Some workers say that quiet quitting is simply refusing to push for union organizing and rising tensions between workers and management who are trying to force people back into the office after 2 years of remote work. Quiet quitting is another sign that our idea of work, defining our worth, is shifting. Even here in Washington, D.C., where the first question when someone meets you used to be, "What do you do?" This is starting to shift. In one video that now has 3 million views on TikTok, Zed Leplin speaks on behalf of employees who are trying to rewrite the workplace culture. Quiet quitting, he says, is about quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life. The reality is, it's not. And your worth as a person is not defined by your labor. As many people have pointed out, though, this idea of quiet quitting is not new. And while it might be getting a lot of buzz right now, people have been burning out of work for a long, long time. Gen Z may think that they have coined this new term, but it just means that they have not seen the defining films of my generation, Slackers, Clerks, and Office Space. But even way back when the Bible was written, people were suffering from overwork and burnout. God's people, in fact, were enslaved in Egypt, literally dying under the whips of their taskmasters, so that when they were freed and Moses led them into a new life in the wilderness, God reminded them of the commandment to keep the Sabbath. Even then, this was not a new teaching, because from the very beginning, God knew that creation cannot labor without rest. Not even God could do that. After 6 days of bringing creation into being, God took a break. And so God instructs the humans to observe the Sabbath, not just for themselves, but for their animals, for their kinspeople, for their slaves, and for the land. Because there is nothing in creation that can exist without rest. No living thing can work 24/7. Humans need rest. Animals need rest. Even the soil needs to rest in order to bear fruit. And when we do not make space for Sabbath, for recreation, for finding meaning and purpose beyond our work, we become less productive. We disengage, and we burn out. Now, perhaps it's easy for me to stand up here and to talk about the need for rest since I just returned from vacation. And because many of us have been traveling this summer and enjoying perhaps a more relaxed schedule than usual, Many of us have experienced the Sabbath that is needed in our lives. Even if you are retired, you need to be reminded of your need to rest, to take time away from the regular rhythms of responsibility. But have you ever come back from vacation feeling like you need a vacation? Or have you ever gone to bed feeling so exhausted only to wake up in the morning still not feeling rested? The possibility is that you have not gotten the rest that you need. Sandra Dalton-Smith is a physician and a researcher whose work focuses on the integration of life and work balance. And through her work, she has defined the 7 types of rest that all people need. She noticed that even though there was this renewed focus in our culture on sleep, people are wearing sleep trackers now and talking about sleep hygiene. Even with this renewed focus on physical rest, many of us were experiencing unprecedented levels of exhaustion. And that's why she determined we need many different kinds of rest. We need physical rest, yes, but we also need mental rest. We need space where we can just turn off the monkey mind, the ongoing work of our brain. We need sensory rest, where we turn off the screens and the media and the sounds in our environment and experience quiet. Because we live in such an overstimulated world. A friend of mine had brain surgery last month for a benign tumor, and I was talking with her this week about her recovery. And she said that because her brain is healing, there is still a large part of the day where she has to tune out all the sounds. She says, sitting at the dinner table with her family, she hears every noise, from the scraping of someone's chair to the fork on their plate to the conversation, all at the same volume. Can you imagine? And when this happens, she says, her brain literally shuts down. She has to put on a blindfold and put in earplugs and go lay in a dark room. She said, I've had physical injury before, but I have learned that you cannot push your brain further than it can go. So in addition to physical and mental and sensory rest, Dr. Dalton-Smith says we also need creative rest. We need to experience awe and wonder. For you, this might be listening to a beautiful piece of music, or looking at art that you really appreciate. The things that remind you of the spirit of creativity that exists within the world. We need social rest. We need to focus on those relationships with people who really fill us and nurture us and support us. And take a break from those relationships that are taxing and difficult. We need emotional rest, which means that when someone asks you how you are, you can really tell them. You are self-aware enough to know what kind of space you're in. And finally, she says we need spiritual rest, a connection with that which lies beyond all of us. As it says in the Psalms, like a deer longs for water, our souls long for a connection with God. Dr. Dalton-Smith says we need all of these types of rest in every day. And we can find it in little spaces. Stepping away from our computer to take a short walk at lunch. Calling that friend who fills our soul, or turning off the radio in our car we can build these different types of rest into our daily lives. It's true we need vacations and we need days off and we need weekends, but we can't just wait for those times to find Sabbath. We have to find Sabbath in the midst of our daily lives. And we need to do this not just for ourselves, but so that we can work together then and put our collective efforts towards shaping a world in which all people can have the rest that they need. Because when God gives the laws to the newly freed Israelites, God instructs them to take their rest by telling them, never forget that you were once a slave in Egypt, but now you are free. Now you have been liberated from your bondage. You have been released from the back-breaking labor of making bricks without straw, and you can rest. And you must make sure that no one suffers under the same yoke of oppression. Tomorrow is Labor Day. And it is a holiday in this country that we have celebrated for more than 100 years. An opportunity for us to give thanks to the many contributions that workers of all types have made to the strength and resiliency of this nation. But we wouldn't have this holiday. In fact, we wouldn't even have weekends or a 40-hour work week if it had not been for workers who joined together and raised their voices and stood against those taskmasters who wanted to work them to death and said, no, I am more than my labor. This fight continues today with a renewed push for labor organizing. But the truth is that rest should not be treated only as a reward for our labor. Because rest is our birthright. It is the birthright of every human being and of all of creation. And so alongside these efforts for a more just world and living wages and worker protections, we also need to have this conversation about rest and the right that every person has to it in their lives. Tricia Hersey is an artist and the founder of the NAP Ministry, whose motto is rest is resistance. And she wrote this about the NAP Ministry: I began experimenting with rest as a tool for my own liberation and healing almost 10 years ago. It has always been about more than just taking a nap. My rest as a Black woman in America suffering from generational exhaustion and racial trauma was always a political refusal and social justice rising up in my body. I took to rest and naps and slowing down as a way to save my life, to resist the systems telling me to do more, and most importantly, as a remembrance to my ancestors who had their dream space stolen from them. This is about more than naps. It's not about fluffy pillows or expensive sheets or silk sleep masks or any other external, frivolous, consumerist gimmick. It is about a deep unraveling from white supremacy and capitalism. These two systems are violent and evil. History tells us this, and our present living shows us this. Rest pushes back. It disrupts a system that views human bodies as a tool for production and labor. It is a counter-narrative. We are not machines. We are divine. We are all so much more than what we produce. We are not machines. We are a reflection of God's image in this world. So I invite you, I give you permission if you need it,